And when we look at consciousness, because obviously a lot of people relate consciousness to spiritual practice, to mindful practice. You obviously bringing in a really interesting perspective where we're talking about consciousness, as something that happens deep in the brain activity that essentially then goes beyond brain to a quantum level. But when we look at consciousness and mindfulness, are we comparing the same thing here, or are we looking at two completely different concepts, one's scientific and one's philosophical?
I think mindfulness is a description of consciousness when you're contemplative, you don't act rashly, you don't act reflexively, you deliberate, you cogitate and contemplate things before you act. And I think when that's occurring, then you can bring in what Roger described as Platonic influence, Platonic values embedded in the universe. He believes...
Before you go into that, explain to people who are listening, what's a Platonic value?
Well, when these quantum collapses occur, in most types of quantum physics, they're thought to be random, probabilistic. Einstein didn't like that idea. He said God does not play dice with the universe. If you have a system in superposition, it somehow collapses to two possibilities coexisting. It somehow collapses to one or the other. Now, the Copenhagen interpretation, which you mentioned, suggests that observation causes that. Multiple worlds would say, no, there's no collapse. Each one branches off to form its own new universe. Roger would say that when you reach a critical level, that it self-collapses to one or the other, and one is chosen. Now, when that occurs, according to him, the choice is not random, as it would be in the other explanations, but rather is influenced by what he calls Platonic values embedded in the structure of the universe, non-computable values. He wrote about this in his book, The Emperor's New Mind, and said, for example, understanding cannot be a computation. A computer can beat you in chess because it can calculate way, way ahead, but it doesn't really understand the game. There's certain situations that it just doesn't comprehend, and you can beat it. And when you think about it, understanding and knowing is really a feeling. So without a feeling, you can't really understand anything. So he said understanding requires something outside the system through Gödel's theorem. And that outside the system were factors in the universe itself which influence the collapse. And these can be Platonic values. Plato talked about pure form and shapes and solids, but these can be aesthetic and ethical values, good versus evil, beauty. And I think of it as kind of a resonance. So if you're mindful when you make your choices, your choices that you select, your perceptions and your actions will resonate with the fine scale structure of the universe, these Platonic values. In a spiritual sense, you could think of it as following the way of the Tao, divine guidance, that sort of thing. In a more scientific terms, it would be influenced by these Platonic values embedded in space-time geometry.
There you have it, guys. Thanks for tuning in to Unstoppable with me, your host, Kerwin Rae. And please do not forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel where you get to see all of these interviews in the flesh. Share this podcast with your friends. I would love to hear what you guys think. Thanks for joining us.